You can one-shot almost any target with some very early on upgrades in Stellar Blade. Plus, there's lots of amazing features that you can easily miss if you don't follow specific quests. So today, ladies and gents, we're checking out some of the best things to get early, as well as some of my favorite unlockables to become truly OP and get access to awesome upgrades ASAP. One of the first items you can get is a very strong Exospine right after defeating the Abaddon boss fight. So as soon as you finish with that, at the top of the parking lot building, you're going to want to make your way 2 stories down and progress normally. Here you will find a bunch of enemies that you have to defeat, but pay attention to the north-facing wall, as there's going to be a chest in the area that gives you the chain-type Exospine. I really like this one. It carried me quite a bit, gives you a bunch of crit damage, especially if you also upgrade this at level 2. But you can also go to level 3 and boost up the combo attack damage, or well, critical damage for combo attacks level 2 and then level 4 or higher. So this means pretty much all of these combos right here that you see to at least rank 2, indicated of course by the number next to their name. So abilities such as Incursion, but there's others in there that can work really well. Like for example, Reflection is very strong. It is a rank 2, so this benefits from the first level of the Chain Spine. Now we're gonna talk about best skills in just a bit. In the meantime, I want to focus on some amazing early on upgrades, including damaged weapon cores. This is going to be extra on top of the ones you get from defeating bosses from the main story, and if you get the damaged ones too, you can funnel them into improving your weapon damage even more by the time you hit the wastelands. So there are 2 of them in total, and we're gonna need to get them from a couple of side quests that kind of begin right here in Scion the first time you hit it. So once you get to speak to your camp companions and get to head over to Wasteland, first of all, go ahead and talk to these NPCs right here by the bridge, and this is going to open up the first mission called Urgent Information. And for this, you're going to need to head over north in that wasteland region in a place called the Oil Storage Facility and find the whereabouts of 3 missing NPCs. Now, to get over the fence, you're going to need to navigate through the collapsed highway at the top. So just jump over the obstacles, make your way to the other side, descend on the other side of that fence, and you can even open up the door over there to make a quick shortcut. But once in the courtyard, you will have to interact with 3 corpses, and after that, a boss will spawn in the area. Once you defeat that, this is going to give you that damaged weapon core, 1 out of 2, and it's also going to give you some combat continuation gear, a pretty awesome upgrade that gives you boosts in damage as you defeat enemies. Now from this point on, we need to unlock the vendor that lets us convert this damaged weapon core into a normal weapon core to further funnel that into upgrading our weapon. And on the way there, we're also going to find the second damaged weapon core. So for this, if you headed over up north in the wasteland to complete the urgent information, you should have got a call anyway automatically that also opens up the plan to clean the earth mission. So you'll just have to follow this pretty much very close to the same area, just a bit further east in a place called the scrapyard. So simply make your way down over here and help this bot right here that seems to be stuck in the rubble. So for this, you will need to activate 3 generators. So let's start with the first one. One of them is going to be pretty much up to the left of it. You're going to have to use one of these platforms to gain access to the nearby jumping spots. Simply make your way up over there and you can easily activate the generator. The second one is going to be further to the right from the same NPC. So again, we're going to use one of these platforms, and this time around, we're going to make our way at the top of these rails. At the top, we're going to use some of these smaller bots to place them on the platform so that we can open up that door ahead. And we're going to then follow up with a second bigger platform that we can bring to the other side. This way, we can reach the top and activate the second generator. And finally, the third one is on the opposite side, back at the fence where we met the bot. And this is going to again make use of some of these platforms we have to place the weights on, open up the gates, and then use the bigger one at the nearby tower to make our way at the top. Once over here, we can just activate the final one, which is then going to untrap our bot companion. And this will open it as our very own scrapyard vendor, and it actually sells quite a bunch of very important items. One of them is going to be the weapon core. As you can see, we have 1 out of 2. We're gonna find the second one in just a bit, but it also sells a number of other important items, like it has tumbler expansion modules to increase the number of healing potions you get, also drone upgrade modules and omni bolts to increase the number of gear slots. So lots and lots of amazing items and plenty more cosmetics that unlock at higher enough levels of reputation, so definitely worth it. However, we're gonna go ahead and take the second damaged weapon core, which we're gonna find a bit further southeast following this path from the nearby encampment. So once you reach this area, there's going to be an automatic boss fight against a corruptor enemy. So simply defeat it and this will drop a second damaged weapon core for you, plus a bunch of very important crafting mats. If you push a bit further in the area, you can even find a very interesting bunny costume, as well as a bunch of other important items if you want to just customize your character. But now that we have both of the damaged cores, we can go back at the scrap dealer and just buy that weapon damage core, and we can then go ahead and upgrade our weapon. This is also going to increase that damage by quite a bit, plus it's going to increase our reputation with it, so we gain access to other cosmetics later on. Now, we talked about that amazing one-shot combo at the start of the video. Well, it's actually much stronger than that because it also gives you a huge damage buff. It also heals you by 15% on every execution, and you only need a couple of upgrades. So the first one is going to be the camouflage type Exospine, which you're going to find at the top of the solar tower right here in the wasteland. You need to head over right here anyway to activate the power in the region. So once you are at the top of the tower, simply open up the chest next to that switch over there. And this is going to give you the Exospine. However, I recommend going for full level 3 out of 3. That's because your first level already gives you a decrease in enemies' field of view. The second one gives you a damage buff by 17.5% whenever you execute enemies. And the third one is going to give you that 15% max HP heal again upon executing enemies. Which is why I recommend one of the first skills to unlock to be that ambush. It's absolutely amazing, and unlike the assault, you can approach enemies from behind, and this is going to let you instantly press triangle to one-shot them right away. Point at which you're going to get all of these buffs. You can also get the upgrade version of the ambush to also follow up with a second ambush, which usually takes down about half of the enemy's HP, so you can kind of chain this with another ability right after. But as I've said, it's very strong. You can pretty much completely sprint towards a target, and even if you're not completely from behind, you can still take it by surprise and one-shot it right away. Like for example, in the case of some of these enemies, I was constantly flanking them and they still did not detect me because of that reduction in the field of view from the first upgrade. But since we're on the subject of skills, definitely go and start with these upgrades for the rush ability. Your gap closing ability is one of the best in the entire game, and you're going to want to get the rush chain right away. This lets you follow up with a triangle hit to basically shred your enemy and take down a bunch of their stance meter right away. It's actually very strong. It's what makes the combat so fun, lets you immediately jump in, and you can also boost the range at which you can use this, especially with the lightning and the infinite rush. In fact, on the infinite rush, you also gain a damage boost, so definitely worth it since you're going to be using this a whole bunch. From this point on, I recommend going for some of these upgrades right here, like the focus boost and even more so the reflex boost, as it's going to increase that perfect parry and perfect dodge time window. So it's going to be much easier for you to pull them off and then follow up with other stronger attacks. And these stronger attacks include reflection and counter. So counter is your follow-up after a perfect parry. This lets you kind of blink behind the target and then follow up with a very strong attack, usually enough to completely destroy their stance bar and kind of take off their entire balance right away. It's also very good against boss enemies and typically will get you out of a lot of trouble, but you do have to be careful because some attacks can still interrupt it. And my favorite, of course, is going to be Reflection 1 and 2, so you can follow up with either a square or a triangle hold after a perfect dodge. I found this to be even stronger than the counter, specifically because these are instant, especially on the triangle. So more often than not, you're going to end up interrupting that enemy altogether, plus they deal quite a ton of damage. And not only that, they can also act as gap closing abilities. For example, if there's enemies that charge towards you, if you dodge at the right moment out of the way and they kind of move a distance, you can then just follow up with a triangle or square hold and immediately transport yourself to them and deal that damage. Also, blink and repulse are very important for many boss fights, but obviously the game unlocks at least one of these for you, so it's a no-brainer to go for. The only other skills I would say are mandatory early on are these beta energy passives. So you will need more beta energy to cast your beta attacks, which are very strong. So this is going to help you with that. And there's also this charged version of it, the beta chain, which essentially lets you hold your last input and kind of deal a ton more damage. Now, normally this is used when you perform combo chains, and on the last attack you hold it to unleash a much more powerful variant. You can even make use of various exospines and gear pieces to boost that chain attack damage, especially on the higher level ones. However, I found this to be very good on the charge jump attack. So when you jump and use triangle instead of just pressing it, hold triangle and you do a much stronger thrust attack that usually takes down more of the HP and the enemy's stance bar. Now, in terms of some of your beta attacks, it kind of depends against which enemies you struggle more. So if it's against bosses, I recommend triplet. If it's against, well, normal enemies, or if you want faster attacks, you will want to use shockwave. I think early on it's between these two options, but obviously eventually we will unlock all of them. So triplet is what I like against bosses because its final two upgrades, impact and finishing blow, is going to increase the stun on the first triplet, and the second one is going to deal more damage to the balance of the enemy with quadruplet once you reach its final level. So this can help a ton to mitigate some of its attacks or just make it stop and help you, give you more windows of opportunity. Meanwhile, that shockwave is actually really interesting because your actual attacks with it can parry enemy attacks, if you can believe it. So not sure if it's intended, but when you swing your sword at the right moment as the enemy swings its own attacks, you can actually deflect that damage and still unleash your own. So it's actually really awesome, plus it's much faster than the triplet, which is why maybe this is better if you want to follow with quicker combo chains. Anyway, on a final note, the other one I want to talk about is not really mandatory, but it gives you more customization options. So you can actually unlock a barber shop, which is called Gwen's Hair Saloon, back at Cyan by completing a quick mission for the NPC in front of the saloon. So if you talk to this guy right here, which goes by the name of Kasim, I believe, he's going to ask you to retrieve a hair dryer, some scissors, and a straightener, which you're going to find right here around the southern area of the wastelands, again inside of a scrapyard. So you're going to find the straightener right here by these boxes onto the right side. Simply destroy them and retrieve the item. Then you're going to find the blow dryer inside of the courtyard. You're going to need to head over behind the entrance and just keep it to the left. In front of the car, you're going to find it right away. Meanwhile, the scissors are at the bottom of the facility, so simply head over in the middle, retrieve it, and this is going to then let you go back. And once you are back at Kasim, this is going to then open up the barber shop, and you can then unlock a whole bunch of, well, I guess hairstyles, plus a bunch of color schemes if you want to go for, but they will cost polymer, so don't spend too much on this as you do need them for upgrades anyway. Maybe 1, 2 at max is what I recommend at this stage. Oh, and by the way, before you head over into the wasteland, I recommend talking to Lily once again back at your main camp. This is then going to unlock that drone attack for you. You can now use it as a weapon, and you don't really want to miss on this before you head over to the wasteland. Plus, it's also going to open up its own skill tree, so here are some of the things I recommend opening right away. Personally, I went with the scanner modules just because this is going to increase how much they linger on my screen and lets it more easily be visible for a longer time. So maybe even going for like full 4 out of 4, as the last rank over there is going to also reveal soda cans, which kind of have their own well, achievement track. They give you some extra items, unlockables, and even a suit if you get all of them. But in the meantime, you can go with these and also invest some points into other types of ammo to fight against enemies. To keep in mind that you do need to replenish the drone ammo at various locations, vendors, and some of these stations that give you ammo recharge, and you have a limited use of them. So try to use them strategically whenever the situation calls for it, especially against tougher bosses or enemies. But anyway, that's pretty much it with the video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.